Queen's University is situated on the territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe Nations, and we respect the land that we meet on. So for announcements, we have a new member this month, Aida Mishra. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And the Kingston Center has 72 members. Wednesday nights are our social time. So if you'd like to get on the invite list, send us an email at the Center's chat list at kingston@rasc.ca, and we can send you the link. Queen's University is holding an open house, a daily open house on October 14th in regards to the partial solar eclipse. And at 11 a.m. we are going to have a talk by Livia Camo, who will talk to us about the midnight sky, sorry. And the times for the eclipse start at 12:03 with the max at 1:14, and it ends at 2:25. And this info is from DaytonTimeKingston.com. We're looking for volunteers for the sidewalk for solar observing for the partial eclipse, weather permitting for observing. But the talk is going to go ahead even if it is cloudy outside. And we're going to put some equipment together and have it set up inside the building if it's cloudy, just so that we can show people how to take pictures and what equipment was used to take these pictures. So next, we're going to have the update from National Council, John Hurley.
Hello, everyone. This will be a really short update. The National Council met in September. One of the matters they were talking about was having a national treasurer, since they didn't have one come forward at the last meeting, and they've been asking centers to nominate people, and a couple of volunteers came forward, but they were deemed not suitable. So the board has made the decision they're going to proceed the rest of the year unless something changes and they get somebody, but they won't actively look for a treasurer. So in the meantime, our national board and the executive director, Jenna Hines, will be keeping a close eye on the finances. We do have a financial person in the office preparing things, so they seemed optimistic that this is going to work for now. The national office is now at, I believe it's 3 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee, and things seem to be working well, and finances are on track as well as expected, to a relatively small deficit this year compared to last year. The board and National Council the board seems to be talking to National Council a little better than they were in previous years. National Council meeting is basically an hour, or is a 2-hour meeting, and at least an hour or a little bit more of that is reports from our board, the board. So we're getting into this thing of it, and they seem to be a little more consulting National Council on ideas and directions to go. So we're hopeful this will keep going. They'll be coming out with a new nationally run NOVA program. That is some of the old timers remember this. The centers used to operate this independently. New Observers to Visual Astronomy. It's a multi-week course for basically beginners and intermediate people, to introduce them to astronomy and what's out in the sky. National will be operating this online, and we'll be able to sign up with them. Not sure on the dates on this yet, but some of the money will go to National and some of it can come to the center. So hopefully we'll be promoting it. It's fall. Many of us, time to renew your membership. So please go online to rasc.ca into the secure site login, and make sure your membership is renewed. Thank you very much. Any questions, feedback, or anything, just let me know. And that's all for now.
Thank you, John. Okay. And I seem to have lost my power. Oh, there it is. Okay, next up, we're going to have our guest speaker, Stefan Jackson, who's from the Sarnia Center and moved into the area, and he'd been here for a couple of years now. And he's going to be talking on building an observatory. Put a microphone on. There it is. You can have mine.
You have to do shadow puppets while we get your mark out.
Oh, wait, gotta get real close there. Well, first I'll apologize. My wife was supposed to be here. She was going to do a shortened version of the presentation she did at Starfest a year ago on her journey from a visual observer to an imager. But we had guests visiting over Thanksgiving weekend, and she figures her brother made her sick, and she was fine yesterday, but today she's not feeling so hot, stuffy, and sore throat and things. So she decided probably wasn't a good idea for her to come. So you only get one of us today instead of both of us.
Okay. Drive to come up.
I'm going to be talking about the building of our observatory. And just a little background, I'm not a builder, I'm not a construction guy. It's not my thing. But we moved about a year and a half ago from Sarnia to a little bit north of Brockville. And one of the reasons we moved is we were looking for dark skies. I also do a lot of kayak fishing, so we want to be somewhere where there are lots of little lakes. And so we found a place a little bit north of Brockville, and we ended up there. And so we had some space in the backyard and decided this will work. We can build an observatory there, which was kind of their retirement goal, was to be somewhere where we could set up our own observatory.
And the drive's still not being recognized.
Well, it worked.
Are you from a Macintosh family?
It works in both, because I used it on her PC.
Going to be a real short talk.
No, I've got one. I've got a spare key if we have to try and copy it across. That looks like a PC.
Yeah.
It's probably not running Windows 7 though.
Windows XP there, Malcolm.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Don't laugh. I still have one of those running in the lab. No, it's not.
Desktop runs on XP.
I also have it saved on here, so. Because I checked to make sure it would work.
Well, let's try again.
Yeah, if you want, so we can copy it from there. Okay.
Sorry, folks. More normally we'd have all this stuff done, but again, late for dinner. Okay. You're gonna entertain the folks?
I'll entertain. Okay, we also have some solar viewers here tonight. So for those who didn't get any at the last meeting, we have the glasses as well as these the square solar viewers. So if you would like some, let me know and come up at the break, and we can get you some. And we also have the solar book that Rick borrowed last month. This total solar eclipse, April 8th. 2024. If somebody wants to borrow it out from the library, just let me know, and I can put your name towards it and bring it back next month. Oh, Elaine has already grabbed it, so there you go. I'll put you down. I know where you live.
That's a big PowerPoint.
So for those who are online, do we know who's online?
I'm just not showing it right now because the mouse is disconnected.
That's okay. I saw Gary Diamond online. How's it going down there, Gary?
Rain, drizzle, fog.
Ah, well, we got
I
the
brought a
same-
new piece of equipment, so I'm to blame this
Oh.
week.
Oh, okay. And I saw Don Town on there. How you doing, Don?
Good. I'll step aside and just show the fallen stars background.
Yes, I seen that. That's a great picture. Kevin's just going to move a few screens here so we can see it. Okay. Who else is online here?
Oh, there you
Look
go.
at that great crew, eh?
And then the big giant head, yes. Okay,
Excellent.
remove spotlight. Okay, we have an observatory. Let me. start
Okay, so
sharing.
I'm going to hand the mic back to Kevin.
Okay. And we're gonna do that and slideshow mode, start.
There we go.
Mouse is yours.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I'm just gonna turn the lights off so people can
Okay.
see better.
So this is the finished product, but I'll kind of go through our whole thought process and how we got to this point. So we decided we wanted to build an observatory. So the first thing we thought about was, how big is this thing going to be? And I figured, let's make it as big as we can make it, but I didn't want to get into dealing with building permits and all that. So 9 by 12 is what we decided on, because that's about your maximum size that you don't have to worry about getting building permits. I probably could have gone bigger. My neighbors probably wouldn't have worried about it one bit if I had gone bigger. But then the other thing is, the bigger you go, the more wood and the expense goes up as well. So we thought 9 by 12 was a good way that we weren't going to run ourselves into any issues. So the first thing we did is I just took some rope and some poles and some tarps, and I kind of set up where I thought it should go, and set up a 9 by 12 and put the scopes in it that we thought that this is about what we'll be doing, just to see, is this even going to work? Is it practical? Does it make sense? So we did that, and looking at it from a little higher perspective, seeing how it would fit within our yard and everything. I know a lot of people, when they build their observatories, you know, they'll aim them north, south, whatever. We didn't worry about that. We were more worried about sort of the aesthetics and working with the yard. So we kind of said, here's a spot where we'll get our best sight lines and be able to, you know, not have it interfere with the rest of the yard. So that's kind of what we looked at. And, you know, just, we won't be spending a lot of time in it. We just wanted to kind of see, is there room for us to maneuver in it? And it seemed like, yes, there was. So we thought, okay, this looks like this is going to work. So there are 4 telescopes that are in there, housed in there now. So the first step, like I say, I'm not a builder by trade or anything, so I don't have a whole lot of experience. What I did do, a friend of mine had purchased the CD on the Sky Shed observatories. And so he lent me that just so I could have a look at it. And I kind of looked at their plans as to how they did it. I looked up some just shed builds online just to kind of get an idea. And then I just went ahead from there. So the first step was I marked out with rope, here's where it's going to sit. And I made the ground piece, what did I go? I think I went 12 by 14, because I wanted to make it a little bigger than what the shed was going to be, just to make it easier for cutting the lawn and that once it was all up and everything. So the first step was to dig out the ground. Now, being new to the place, we knew we didn't have a lot of soil down to the bedrock. I was a little surprised that in some cases it was about 6 to 8 inches, probably in the deepest corner. It was maybe 12 inches down to bedrock. So I started digging. And once I found the bedrock, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to clear it all right out to the bedrock, and we'll build it right on top of the bedrock. We decided not to go with piers. I know a lot of people like to do the pier thing. We had that talk last week about you know, the issues with using piers. I have friends who they just image off their back decks, and they seem to do fine. And when we go away, we you know, just image with tripods on the ground. So we thought, I'm not going to go to the trouble of trying to put a pier into this. And we wanted our observatory. We weren't exactly sure how it was going to be used. So I didn't want to do something that was so permanent that we didn't have any flexibility. So we decided just to go this route instead. I wanted to have power, so I dug trench. We were lucky, right at the corner of the deck, there's a power box there for our hot tub. So I was able to tap into that. So I just came along to the edge of the patio and then out to where the observatory is. again, right down to the bedrock, put Ethernet and power out there. And to cover it up, I put just some concrete, a little layer of concrete over top of it to protect it so that nothing happened to the wiring in that. So then what I did is I got sonotubes and I built just the frame floor structure and looked at the positioning of the sonotubes. Once we got that positioned, we drilled some holes right into the bedrock, put some rebar into that, and then we filled the sonotubes with concrete. And so that gave me the foundation to build the frame on for the floor. And but if you have questions anytime, just holler. And then I filled that in with gravel and just put some brick around it, try to make it look nice. We get a lot of water, and with the bedrock the way it is, our backyard in the spring is very, very wet, very mushy all the time. So I just wanted something. Part of the thing, I wanted the floor up off the ground because I wanted to be able to have airflow underneath. Because it's so damp on the ground, I didn't want to build right on the ground and have that dampness trapped. I wanted to get it up a bit so that wouldn't be an issue. So I built the main frame for the floor, and so I put deck blocks up on top of the sonotube, and then this was the frame structure for the floor. Now, the interesting thing is when you build something that's 9 by 12 and you're working with 4 by 8 sheets of plywood, you have to figure out how you're going to end up jerry-rigging this. What I ended up doing is, you'll see along the two sides there, I came in 6 inches on each side so that there was my 1 foot out of my 9, so that an 8-foot sheet of plywood would fit across the floor here. And then of course, going 12 that way, I could fit 4 sheets across that way. The idea being that once it was built, if I ever want to get at underneath it, I can just take the scopes out, I can take off all 4 of the middle sheets of plywood, and now I'm open to underneath it. Originally, my idea was that I was going to run the Ethernet under the floor and the power under the floor and put outlets right in the floor underneath the scope and an outlet for the Ethernet, so that I'm not running wires across the floor. As the project went on, it kind of costs kept adding up, and then finally I got my, you know what, I'm not going to worry about that now. But if I want to do that at some point, it's not a hard thing to do because I can just pop those two sheets of plywood out, and I can get access under there pretty easy if I want to do something like that. So that was kind of why the floor looks like that. And like you say, doing 9 by 12, you're kind of have to jerry rig something. So I got 3/4 inch marine plywood for the floor, and I painted it with the paint that you'd put on a cement or basement floor, just to try to give it some toughness and kind of protect it from when we're in and out and everything. And then I built the walls. Thank goodness my wife isn't here, because she'll tell you, she said, you made it too tall. And it was, again, not being a builder, I wanted to try to build it as simple as possible. I didn't have like an overall at the beginning, here's exactly how it's going to look. Once I got the floor done, I was like, okay, now how am I going to do walls? So then I worked on the walls, and I just kept kind of finding, okay, how do I do the next stage of this as I went along? I probably could have gone about 6 inches shorter on the walls. But the tough part is her scope, she's got like a fairly wide field scope on a small mount, where I've got the LX200, which is a pretty big scope on a big mount. And so I'm trying to accommodate these different sizes. So she wants hers to be able to see the horizon better. So she's a little disappointed that it's a little taller than she might have liked, but I didn't want it to be too short and then, worry about issues with the scopes getting hit with the roof sliding and everything. Yeah, sure. Just at Home Depot, or sorry, not marine, pressure treated. Sorry, the pressure treated plywood. Yeah, sorry. Thank you for. So yeah, and I mean those sheets aren't cheap. Like I kind of had a rough idea of what I thought this was going to cost, and it probably ended up costing almost double what I kind of originally thought it was going to cost. Of course, we were building it at the time that wood was pretty expensive and everything too, kind of before it all started to drop down. Maybe it had started to drop down a little bit, but it certainly wasn't a cheap metal. Yep.
So how tall are the walls?
I ended up going, I can't remember, I think it was 5.5 feet. And then by the time you'll see as I add being 6 feet. Part of it, it's nice because the door, like I don't have to duck it because you're stepping up and stepping down through the doorway. I don't have to really duck to go through the door. And you'll see when we get to the end, the scopes are kind of almost at that level. So then I had to put sonotubes out for the frame where the roof was going to roll off. So that was kind of the next step. And so then starting to do this part. So using 4x4, so I had to use 2 4x4. So I put a shorter one here and then a longer one that came all the way out to the end and had, I think, 1.5 feet or 2 feet overlap over the frame there. So it would be supported. And then, of course, I'm closing it in. Just a couple angles of that. And then we started building in the fall, and I actually got it usable just before Christmas. We didn't side it until this spring, but the Tyvek was good around it. It kept it protected all winter. So that was kind of nice. And again, so putting the bracing up for the truss for the roof to roll off. And then again, just sort of framing up a roof that I felt would work. I built just one roof truss. Seemed like it would be solid enough. Asked a couple of friends, said, "What do you think?" That people that do build, and they said, "Yeah, that should hold no problem." So I ended up doing that. One of the things that I did that is different from pretty much all the observatories I've seen built like this is I put my wheels and track on the outside, where most people put them on the inside. And I did that because it made it a little easier, I thought, for building. And it also just kept it outside, not inside your space where you're trying to build and have room. So I found that worked really well. So I used 3-inch garage door track, and I used 13 brackets and wheels on each side. So it really spreads the weight out nicely. When it was done, I was able to roll it with one finger back and forth. I estimated about 500 pounds on the roof. And of course, then when you get some snow on it, but when we get snow, I do go clear the snow off of it. So it really isn't a lot to push and move that way. So there you can see, so they're about a foot apart, the wheels, but these are the heavier duty, the 3-inch ones. So that's pretty solid. Again, I was surprised at how much the track is. Like just the track, it was $1,000 just for the track for that. They were 14-foot pieces, and I needed 26 feet on each side, and so they were $250 each for the track pieces. So again, I didn't expect it was going to cost quite that much, but you get to that point and you're kind of stuck, and so you go with it, right? Yeah, so you got to make sure it's going to work. So yeah, so I had the 4x4s on top that attached. When I initially designed the roof, I designed it so that I would have a nice overhang. Like I've got almost a foot overhang on each side, and I designed it so that it would be kind of covered at the end here, and the gable end would be sort of flat back in here. Again, so there'd be a good overhang to prevent water and everything else from getting in. I wanted to make it as secure as I could. And I ended up having to change that plan afterwards, and we'll see why in a second. So from the inside, again, you can see the structure of the roof. And then I just put the tin on the top. I put a vent on each end. And you can see on the ends, there's the wall. So then I had to build. When you see an open picture, kind of see. Oh, so at first I didn't want the roof to be able to move in the wind. So this is what I did, just a simple latch system. I had 4 of those, one in each corner, so that I could latch the roof in place. And so initially I was just pushing it open, and I had a rope that I could then pull it to close it again, which worked for us for the initial phases of this. So you can see here where I had this flat. So again, it was kind of offset in and would be protected from any rain or anything that was coming down. So that kind of got it to the point where we were ready to go. Okay, so this is this the video? I thought this was-
Video may not have translated over to the secret office.
Oh, okay.
Shadow puppet.
Oh, that's too bad. So this was, yeah, this was just the video of showing it rolling open and closed. Presentation. So you can see with the roof rolled off, at each end there was a little bit that stuck up, which I did that because it wasn't going to be in the way, because you can see the trees behind. And on the other end, our neighbor has a street light, which they rent from Hydro, which is freaking annoying. And they have the street light aimed into their yard, which actually aims into our yard. And so I wanted to make sure the street light was blocked from shining into the observatory, so it wouldn't interfere with the scopes. So that's why I made the ends just a little bit taller there. So you can see with my wife, these are my wife's scopes, a little sitting a little bit lower. Now what we have done is we've since got a pier for this, so we've raised that up about 8 or 10 inches, which has helped get it up a little higher. And then this one, I've taken the deck blocks and then taken some 4x4 posts and leveled them off. And so we've raised this one up. So now, you know, these are sitting up a lot closer to the level of the roof so that she gets a better view. And so eventually what I ended up doing was I went from it being a push, I motorized it. And when I motorized it, I had to make some changes. So now you can see I've actually brought the gable end out to the here instead of having it inset like that. So you can see I had to add an extension piece here because I wanted to make sure that it rolled the roof all the way off. And so the track that rolls it had to stick out a little bit. Initially, my plan was to use a garage door opener. And there are 3 types. You can get the belt, the chain, or there's a screw type where it's got like a threaded rod that turns and moves it. And that's originally what I was going to do, but I couldn't find one anywhere. That's what the Skyshed people do when they automate them, but I couldn't find one anywhere. So with a little more research, I found that a lot of people use a gate opener system. And so that's what I decided to go with, as a gate opener system. And so the gate opener is mounted on the other end. And then this is the track that it pushes to push it out of the way. Now, I do have a video on that, but we may be a little stuck on that. So let's, okay, so this is the way it's looking now. It's everything raised up a little higher. And so you can see, I mean, you know, our neighbors have trees and things. We have some trees, and this is, actually that's looking south. So it'd be really nice if that tree fell down, because it would open up the south. Because that's on my neighbor's yard, so I can't really do anything about that one. But you can see, like the LX200, and I've mounted the solar scope on top. So I wanted to make sure that the roof was going to be high enough to clear it. I know you can make it park them so they do. I just don't want accidents to happen. So I thought, you know, a little bit of height. And with the way the trees are, that little bit of height really isn't interfering a whole lot with what we can see anyways. My wife will argue different. And so that's looking north, is kind of off this way. Oh, once I got it automated, I also purchased a Wi-Fi system that connects into the gate opener. So now I can actually use my phone from anywhere, and I can open and close the roof. So if ever we, you know, set up imaging and went out somewhere and we go, oh no, freak rainstorm, I can actually close it from anywhere now if I really need to. And I put a little blink camera in it so that I can always look in it and see, is the roof open or is it closed, just to be sure that way as well. So this was a video that kind of does a 360. That's looking north. So we can see the North Star up there for aligning and everything. But being as I can't play them.
Just try something.
Okay.
double clicked on it. That's not doing anything. Okay. No, let's try the next one. Oh no, I broke it. Nope,
Okay.
too far.
Yeah, so we can, well. Can we get on the internet here?
Yes.
Okay, because I do have the one video that I was going to show about the gate opener. It is on my YouTube.
Okay, go for it.
Okay.
Don't forget about us.
Yeah, well, I just have to find it first. Now, can I get into my account on here? Okay, why am I? Oh, the mouse is upside down. That's why it's moving away. Oh,
Well, once we get the video up, we'll stop and reshare.
yeah. How? You know where I get into my account?
Is it
there
a,
way
is
to-
it a private or is it a public YouTube?
I can't remember what it is.
If you just search for yourself,
Okay.
Stefan and Carolyn. Ooh,
Yeah, that's not. Okay, it's not finding me. Oh.
how about if you had the word astronomy or observatory or, you know, anything else that you've tagged it with?
Yeah. Ah, genius. There we
Okay,
go.
So I'm just going to stop the share for a sec.
Okay. So that's the one.
And we're going to reshare. Oh, the whole screen. What the heck? Okay. And can we make that big? Okay. Susan, how does that look on Zoom? Okay.
Okay, hopefully the sound comes through.
Let's just get rid of these guys. And
Okay, so there should be sound.
I'm not hearing sound. Hey, Zoom line.
Okay, well,
people, Are you hearing
I
sound?
kind of talked through it, I guess. So this is a video I made for YouTube for the observatory, or for the Facebook group that I'm part of about observatories. So I was just kind of explaining what I've done. So obviously you can see the track there. So this is the gate opener, the topens. When I originally mounted it and tested it, I didn't have this great big 6x6 there. I just had blocks, and the gate opener is meant to be mounted in a different orientation. And so what I had is I had built a little support coming out from the wall, and it was mounted, turned sideways. And every time it clicked on and off, it gave such a big shake with the torque that the track, it would jump out of the gear in that. So I ended up having to put that big 6x6 up to give it enough strength and support so that I could lag it in really securely. So it's lagged down to the roof. So you can see here, this is the track that it runs across. So across the bottom of the roof, I just put some pressure treated wood so that I had a nice level surface to mount the track on that the gate opener pushes on. One of the things I was concerned about is garage doors. They're designed to be able to shift a little bit from side to side. And if the roof shifted a bit from side to side, the track would come away from the gear. So I mounted a little wheel here so that if it tried to shift this way, it wouldn't be able to do that. So the gear is there, and then the wheel is here. So that prevents it from being able to move too much, so that so it won't move far enough away to disengage the track from the gear. I can't remember what else I was saying in the video at that point. So it's designed to move 2,200 pounds. So I figured I was fine as far as that goes. You know, it shouldn't have any trouble moving it, and it does move it quite nicely. And it was like $360 for the gate opener. So you know, it wasn't a really expensive thing. So this is what I had to modify. this is the top of the gate opener. And so what I'm pointing there, this pretend there was another one exactly opposite on this side. And because of the way I was using this, ideally the way this design when you're using this, the gate, the track would be running across this surface of the gear. But because of the way I mounted it, I needed it to run over that on the side. So I had to just take the grinder and I just ground off the other one so that it was out of the way. And then this is the sensor. There's a magnet here and then a magnet at the other end. And that sensor picks up the magnets to tell it when to stop. And normally that's mounted underneath here. And so I had to mount it up on top here so that it would pick up the magnets where the way they were mounted on the roof. But one of the things I told you, I had extended that gable end out, which was really nice because now this is underneath the gable end there. So when it rains, like this doesn't get wet or anything at all. The other thing with this gate opener, this is a little latch. If you take the key and open it up and turn that down, it actually disengages the gear system. So you can still move the roof manually if you need to. So, and the way it's mounted, that's easy. I can get at that just standing outside to access it. Well, the gear turns and just, I guess it pulls it towards it. Yeah, because the roof is over. This is on the outside of the observatory. So when the gear engages, it's going to pull the roof over top of it. Okay. There you go. So that's it. Yeah. Yeah, that's the speed that it runs at. And then once the magnet comes, as soon as the magnet gets sensed, it stops. And then I was just showing how the wheel prevents the track from jumping over.
A single point of failure where squirrels like to eat magnets.
Oh, well, I haven't had any squirrels up there, so let's hope that. Yes, if you press the button and then when it opens so far, you just hit the button, it'll stop. And then when you press it again, it'll go back the opposite direction. So, and the idea is at some point, I'm hoping this winter to dive into Arduino programming. And I've seen that there's things out there to do that. So eventually I would like to get it so Nina can do it. So, and this is just showing the back deck. There we go, it opens. No, it's pretty quiet. Yeah, I have to open the slide. Like if the patio door is closed, I don't hear it go. And you can kind of see, so my tall scopes, you can see the top of them sticking out. This is before we raised Shelly's, so you're not seeing them at that point. And you can see that's before I finished siding it and everything. And there we go. Oh, so one thing I do have to tell you, if you're going to go this route, here's the one thing that we found out that we had to deal with. When you go to polar align, you go in, you do your polar aligning, and then you walk out and the floor flexes just a little bit. And so you've got your polar aligning and we use Sharp Cap and it says it's excellent. And then you walk out and then you look at it, you go, wait, it's gone back to good or fair. So one of the tricks that we've had to do is you go in and you polar align it, and then you walk out and you see how much you have to move it, and you have to actually make it not be excellent while you're standing there, but then when you walk out and the floor flexes back, you get it to be excellent. So you just have to adjust how you do your polar alignment routine to get it, because I didn't even think of that ahead of time. We just happened to notice that one time when we polar aligned, but we hadn't shut Sharp Cap off before we walked out. You went back and looked at the computer, go, wait a minute, it was just saying excellent, now it's saying fair. What's going on? And then we realized, I guess even though you use 2x8s, the floor still has a little bit of flex, enough that it affects that. So okay. Oh, so I think the all-in cost was probably around $8,000. Like I was expecting it to be about 5, and everything, like, just, the siding was almost $1,000. The plywood for the floor, each sheet was like $120 or something, and I needed, what it was, 4 of them. Just everything, you this and that. And there's always something else you're buying, but I figured get it done, be happy with it, and hopefully it's going to be good now for us for as long as we need it. No, I sorted that off of Amazon. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All
Sorry
right.
for the technical difficulties.
Thank you. That is very good. This gives us one more idea. I really like that roof.
Yo,
What's that?
the videos are embedded inside.
Next up, we're gonna have Andrew. Andrew stuff.
You need the
I do not have it. It is, you have one right there, so let me take mine.
Good,
out. Okay, right in there. And we'll give you the mouse.
Does it matter, PowerPoint, do you have preference or?
We have LibreOffice only, Microsoft Office costs too much.
Okay, that should work, I think. Here's the slideshow duty.
F5 to start that, but I've got to share it first.
Okay.
So let's just quickly pop back to.
Oh, sorry. I had my button too fast. There you go.
Yeah. So let's go down to zoom, 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 zoom. Share, and let's share the whole screen. And then if you go back to slideshow,
I can just, nobody has fine.
F5 should work. Yeah.
There you go. Oh, it's slow.
It's thinking.
Thinking and thinking. Perfect.
Oh, too far. Up, up, up. There we go.
So,
There's your mouse.
is it break quick? Okay. All right.
Hopefully.
It'll be fine. We'll figure it out. So, all right. Hi, everybody. Some of those of you who don't know me, I'm Andrew Godfrey. I'm the editor of Regulus for the club. I'm also a relatively new member. I just actually realized while I was sitting there that I joined this, actually, my first meeting in October 2019 is when I actually came to the very first meeting of the Kingston Center. So I think I got like 2 meetings in before COVID hit us. And then I was like stuck at home for 3 years like everybody else. So, so you realize time goes by fast. Those of you who don't know me already, like my background is in space and engineering primarily, and that's sort of what I do most of the time. And that, so I was, always interested in astronomy as a kid, of course, and then I kind of got back into the hobby about 5 years ago or so. So, Kim and Kevin had asked if I would talk a little bit about observing programs because I'm like a relatively new member, if you will, and a junior member in terms of knowledge and experience when it comes to amateur astronomy. So we thought we'd like to maybe try to give a little bit of a presentation for the new members in the club that don't have a lot of experience and don't really necessarily know sometimes where to get started. So, and I'm one of those typical folks, like I've got young kids at home and I work long hours and basically I get weekends to do observing, and the weather this year has been junk. So, I think I've only a handful of observing, weekends I've been able to get out, that type of thing. So, I've got all the usual typical problems that somebody that's just starting in the hobby, tends to have. And of course, you try to find that time and figure out how to maximize your time and sort of maximize your learning as you get into the hobby more. So some of you may be familiar that a lot of astronomy clubs will offer what they call observing programs. And I really like observing programs because what I find is that it really serves 2 purposes. One, it just gives you actually a goal, right? And sometimes I have a lot of friends that are interested in astronomy or think they want to get in the hobby, but they go like, where do I start? Like, what do I look at? Like, if they have, what's the point? All those kind of questions that I find that so for some folks having an observing program actually is a really easy way to kind of give them a bit of focus and sort of just get them started down a path. I mean, the secondary knock-on effect is that it's like a big rabbit hole, right? You pick one of these programs and you think you're just going to go look at stuff and check off boxes on a list, but then you start to do all the digging deeper and you start to go down those interests that you have. And the next thing you know, you've got party tricks because you can point at creators and those names out, things like that.
Time out a second. We don't
Yeah,
know
sure.
if you're mic'd
Oh,
up or not. No, you're not.
I'm not myself. All right.
Thank you, chat.
Excellent. Stick that in there. Yeah, there we go. Is that better? Got it now? Good. Da 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 da. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Okay, sorry about that. There we go. So let's carry on. So yeah, so I mean, there are a lot of clubs that have observing programs. Like the Astronomical League has a massively huge observing program. They have dozens and dozens of different programs that cover a whole range of interests. And obviously, the RASC's got a observing program as well, but they only have about half a dozen or so, maybe 7 or so different programs. And they're kind of just sort of very basic. There's some really beginner programs, intermediate ones, and then a couple of advanced ones for those who've been down the track. And I know a lot of members here in the club, people in the room, have done these programs and have looked at them, but I'll just go through this one in a little bit of detail just because I know that some people have not seen these before. So I'll just go next slide here real quick. So I like most people, I started with the RAC simple beginner programs. I did the Explore the Universe and Explore the Moon ones, which just sort of situated me to some geography that I didn't have before. And then, of course, I got interested in the moon because it's a very simple target, especially if you live like in an urban area where I do, where you've got border sky conditions that are not great. And like I said, you have restricted observing periods that you can actually get out and look at things. And so the moon is in the sky most of the month. And so what I found that I was doing is that I'm usually running 2 observing programs at a time. Like I'm doing this program, but I'm also doing the double star program as well. So because then if I get, if I've got good skies or moonless nights, then I can at least always have something to plan and something to work on as I sort of march my way through my own sort of journey on exploration and gaining knowledge of the subjects. And so this program I found was really interesting because I mean, it is our closest neighbor, and a lot of times it gets like by serious amateur astronomers, they tend to sort of write it off as a subject. They want to get into the deep sky objects and look at the more complicated things, but it's an amazing conversation starter for folks that don't do astronomy all the time or amateur astronomy on a regular basis, and it's a relatively easy target to get at. And also too, once you start to dig into it, you do actually realize that if you're interested in geology or you're interested in, it's what they call selenography, right? Like lunar geography. It's quite fascinating, actually, when you think about how this thing got here in the first place. And of course, what creates all of these sort of features that we see and we kind of just take for granted and sort of don't give much of a passing thought to. So the Isabel William Lunar Observing Program is what they call an intermediate program because it's a program that will take you a long time to get through and accomplish. It's not something you'll do just in a couple of months and that because there's quite a few objects that they want you to do. So like I said, it's one of the 2 programs that are there, and also it encourages, I found at least, the development skills. Like I'm not an astrophotographer yet. I'd like to get there, but obviously I feel like I have steps. Like I started with binoculars and I graduated to a telescope, and then I'm eventually going to get into the more detailed stuff. But I find that these programs really provide that opportunity to sort of test some of the skill sets that maybe you don't have. Like one of the other things that I've started to do is lunar sketching, which is actually really, I find, very interesting and very, very relaxing. Actually, I find it's like catharsis for me, but it's something I've never really tried before, but it's something that I'm kind of like I said, it's a rabbit hole. I'm starting to sort of tumble down it and get into it more. So sometimes with these observing programs will force you out of your comfort zone or things that you're just sort of very familiar with and doing. So I find that, and especially for newer members and that are newer to the hobby or newer to the clubs, it's a great segue for them to get into the more complex and more complicated observing. So I highly recommend them if for those, even for the more veteran ones. So the program is pretty simply structured. There's obviously a lot of required objectives that you have to observe and record in order to meet the certificate requirements. And then they have something they call challenge observations. And these are usually things that are in the same region that you're looking at, but they may be more finer detail features, craters that are smaller, basins, mare, whatever hills, whatever may be. And so what they've done is that if you take this is just an example of one of the pages that's actually in the logbook for the checklist. And as you can see, they have basically the requirement of the region. They've got some latitude, longitude, and various locations for you. They give you some very basic information. Like one thing I always find very interesting when I'm looking at lunar features is that I take for granted just how big some of these things are. Like you're looking at a crater and you don't realize that it's 200-300 kilometers across potentially, or it's 50 kilometers deep, or whatever the case may be. You think it as a small object, but then when you start to get into some of that detail and how it was formed and what some of the depths and ranges are, it gives you pause, especially when you compare it to like features on Earth. So you've got those required sort of observations you have to make, but then there's also challenge ones that sort of take you down a little bit farther down the rabbit hole, if you will. And so you sort of go through this process, and over time, basically, they've got about, like it says, 260 observations, and then there's some challenge ones in there. And then if you're, if you take advantage of libration as the moon goes across the sky, you can get some of those as well. Which are very, much more challenging depending on the scopes you're using. And then, of course, they have this really one, which is like if you're like what they call a lunatic, and if you want to go after the full thing, there's a spreadsheet that's provided with the program that actually has 1,000 named features on it. And if you really want to go to town, you can slowly march your way down this list. I am kind of going down this list by default, but I'm not going to declare that I'm going to get through all of it yet. So, but you know, it's good to have a challenge, right? It's something that give you some focus and sort of go on it. So where am I? So like I said, I did explore the moon. So I didn't want to cheat and sort of say, well, I've already seen that. I've kind of knocked that one off. So I actually started over again, so to speak. And I've only been going on since May. And like I said, with the few sessions that I've had, I haven't really chewed in, as you can see. But the one thing that's interesting is that, you know, you get into some of the things where you start to find things that actually aren't in the list, but you find it in the maps when you're using your references. So like, for example, like Bancroft Crater, which is next to Archimedes, is actually not in the list of objects to find. It might be in the lunatic list, but it's actually not in the required list, which I find interesting because I have a picture here I'll show you that I took. You can actually see it quite easily as part of the observation. So I was kind of interested as to why that didn't get on the list. I guess maybe just got overlooked perhaps. So you find little things like that. Like I said, it causes you to do things that you don't normally do. Like, I mean, I'm doing quick and dirty sketches there just so I can make my records. But, you know, at the same time, too, you start to get into taking your time and doing some proper artistic sketches with, you know, white pencils and black and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, this is like the real dangerous piece, right? I'm slowly getting dragged into is photography, which will be a very happy but expensive endeavor when I get to it. So, but it's good because it allows me to practice and sort of break my teeth on the whole topic and start to ask the questions or think about the things I need to know, so that when eventually I get to astrophotography more seriously, then I'll be better prepared than just sort of showing up blinding and buying a lot of stuff I don't need. So, you know, you go through your normal sort of records, you make your sketches and you make your little notes and so forth and so on. And like I said, when you're done the whole thing, actually you end up with a pretty good reference, which I think is pretty good. So let's just talk very quickly about imagery. So I'm doing, like, you don't have to take photos for any of the observing programs. It's not a requirement, but you know, I do this one for reference too, because sometimes you'll see things you're not quite sure and you want to check later when you go back inside and do your notes and finish up your log. So I sometimes like to have a photograph. I'm using a very simple aperture. I basically have an iPhone mount connected to the eyepiece mount, and this is taken with an iPhone 14 basic lens. And so, I mean, it's not bad. Right, and this is real, just quick and dirty. Like, it's not stacked or anything or photoshopped. It's just a single, you know, sort of hit and switch. But already you can see you get, you know, there's Plato and there's the Apennine Valley there and sort of thing. And there's Archimedes that I was talking about. There's Bancroft Crater right there that nobody notices. And then you've got like Fouilly and Beer and then Heinrich and then Lambert down here and so forth, and Cassini right there, you know, sort of thing. And so before you know it, like now you're fun at parties, because who else can do that? People are like, my dog. Creators, but and then of course you catch things too, like, so for example, there's like a lava flow at the bottom of this valley, right, which is really hard to see, and I couldn't believe it that I actually caught it in the photo. If you look at this thing real close, you can actually see the dark rill that sort of runs at the bottom of the valley, which is the lava flow that's pushed up through and has caused part of that fissure. But I mean, I thought I saw it with my naked eye when I was doing the observing, so I made a note, go back, look again, you know, that kind of thing. But of course, when I looked at my photos later, it's like, oh yeah, I can actually see it. It's just right there, along with the shadow line. So, you know, lots of interesting features. You start to learn about, you know, the geography, the Tenerife ridges that are there. You've got the Caucasus and the Apennines as you go farther down. Like, you know, you can see Hadley Rill and the Apollo 15 landing sites and all that kind of stuff and all that. And then, of course, you know, we're going back to the moon next year. You know, if all the engineering goes well enough, they're going to send 4 people around the moon. And so you start to, like, me personally, like, I'm starting to reconnect with all this just because it's starting to become a bigger knowledge. And of course, as those stories get out into amongst my circles of friends and clubs, people start asking you more questions. Tell people stuff, and it's everyone's interested, and it's good. So you know, it's a great program from that regard. And then of course too, like I said, the technology with a phone, you don't need fancy equipment, right? You can get pretty sophisticated or decent shots for reference just with whatever you've got at hand, literally. So good photos and good references all the way around. So, you know, what have I learned so far? So, you know, like all programs, right, you try to sort of pick up a few things. This program is not really, so, like, it's not a beginner program. So you do kind of need, I would suggest at the very minimum, you're going to look at it like a 6-inch telescope to get sort of real return for your investment out of it. 8-inch scopes are great. It's what I'm using right now. I've got an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain that I'm using. Like I said, I took this picture with my iPhone. Like, you know, so great shot. There's Tycho, you know, you can do all the Mare, like you can get pretty decent shots for reference and just for learning and getting your selenography sorted out. The program has got a main reference, which is Antonin Ruckel's Moon Atlas. It went out of print some years ago, but actually they've just republished it. So it's actually just come back into print last year. Like I know that like Susan, you and I were talking to this. Like I bought a copy. I want to say it was $80. I think is what the cost is, but the maps in here are fantastic if you haven't seen this reference. And of course, like I said, there are references throughout the program for it. So I'd highly recommend it. I have one other one that I use quite often. This is Charles Wood's Atlas of the Moon, which is also a good one. I'm sorry if the guys, folks online probably can't see it so easily. This one's great because it just has like some really nice sort of lots of really good simple maps and very good sort of references. So I like having a couple of hard copy. I have a couple of apps on my phone too, which give me good online lunar maps that I can sort of refer very quickly. But I find that those are pretty useful. The other thing too, like all these programs, right? You think you're just going to start on page one and you're just going to work your way through it. So of course, I started in the middle, like most people do for most projects. And I went out on the first night and I was like, okay, what phase is the moon in? I guess that's where I'm starting. And you sort of go from there. So you have to accept that. I broke it up into sections, like I showed with that picture, and I just took my time. Like, it's not really it's not a program you can finish quickly. So you really just want to take your time, and actually allows you to sort of get into the geography and the evolution of that section of the moon, and you sort of learn quite a bit. So I find that it's not something you want to rush, and it's actually a pretty interesting view. And it's something that I find the moon is one of those objects that's really easy to share with other people that don't know a lot about astronomy and just want to see something cool. So I have a lot of other of my neighbors and family and friends are at my scope a lot, just have a look when I'm out doing whatever I'm doing. So which is great because then you get other people interested in the hobby. Like I said, I use a cell phone to take most of my quick reference shots for later use. That's pretty quick. Libration, obviously, you want to take advantage of it when you have it, because like this summer with the weather being junky as it is, like I missed a couple of opportunities, and I've been waiting like 7 months to get back to that point, trying to have a clear night without libration, that phase of the moon, that kind of thing, so I could get the rest of my shots. So I try to take advantage of those opportunities as they come by. And then the last thing, like I said, is I find that if you make a bit of investment in your log, and however you decide you want to keep it, but I find that once you've completed this program, like you'll have a pretty handy reference that you can use for other things, and maybe start some other projects depending what those are, or things you want to go back and revisit. So like I'm sure that improve my photography skills and get up to a higher level in that regard, I'll probably go back and take some pretty detailed shots of the moon. Like I saw some of those shots that Shelley put up on the Facebook page of the moon. Those are fantastic, right? So those are the kind of things I'd like to do eventually. So of course, I'm just sort of getting like I said, breaking my teeth on the basics, but hopefully I'll get to that point at some point in the future where you can take much more detailed photography. And I already kind of know the subjects that I'd like to go back and look at first and photograph and sketch first. So that's it. That's it, kind of a nutshell. And this is just one program. So a lot of the more intermediate and advanced observing programs are actually quite fascinating. Like I said, I find the other one that I'm working on, the double star program, is the same thing. You learn about the way that the stars are separated, the angles and all that kind of business, colors, and then you start to learn about, all that kind of stuff. So for newer amateur astronomers and people that are newer to the hobby, these are actually pretty useful tools. And so I would go back to the RASC and say, this is a good thing, and they should probably make more as they're able to, because I find that it's a great gateway for newer amateur astronomers coming into the clubs and coming into the hobbies. So I would highly recommend them. If you've got friends that are not sure about getting into the hobby, this is probably a good place for them to start. So that's it. Thanks very much. Very short, sweet, and any questions you got. So thanks. Yes.
Could I ask a question?
Oh yes, please.
This is Bruce.
Yeah, I see you.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was just wondering, how do you connect your cell phone to the telescope eyepiece?
So there's two ways that a lot of the Celestron products are doing right now. There's one series of telescopes, like their StarSense scopes, and they're quite literally, they actually have a mount that's in the scope practically. You just drop your phone right into like a cradle, and it's connected through Wi-Fi, and it goes straight away. And then the way that I'm doing it is I've bought a really simplified, Celestron makes actually a cell phone mount that you can connect to the eyepiece of your telescope. And again, it's like a cradle, and it has an X, Y, and Z axis actually on it. So you can actually, once you get the phone in the cradle, you just basically orient your eyepiece with your camera over the eyepiece until the image comes through actually on the screen of your phone, and then you're good to go. And then you just hit the button and away you go. Wow. And most of the phones now, the cameras in them are actually getting increasingly sophisticated. So you can create longer exposures. You can create you can basically do some post processing right in your phone. So it provides you a great source, and it's a very simple connection. It takes like 2 minutes to set up. And then because of the way that the cradle's designed, if I just want to put my eye back on the eyepiece, I can pop the phone out like that. It takes like no time at all. And then I can look through and do what I want to do. And then if I want to get a photo, or I can put my phone back in the cradle and take a couple of shots. So it's actually pretty, I recommend it for like beginners because it's not technically complicated and it's not actually very expensive. I think the cradle cost me like $40. And of course, everyone's got a phone. So whatever phone you have should do the trick.
Okay, thanks a lot. That's very encouraging.
Oh, thanks for the question. Yeah, great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to take a 5-minute break now. So we shall see you shortly. Make sure you come back.
I'm just gonna turn the lights on, watch your eyes. Bathrooms are just out the door within a few meters.
There you go. Thanks.
Okay. Let's get Rick started up.
You might as well have this. You're up next.
Unless you're gonna be going to the bathroom.
Yeah. Take it in. We'll hear it online.
No, what I was going to suggest is talk to staff and see if you can get the videos from them. Then we can just run through the 2 extra videos after the break.
I don't think they're available.
Well, he's got his computer. I mean, you could ask.
Yeah.
We got you both together.
They were embedded inside the PowerPoint. We can't get them out.
Yeah, but he may
He
have.
may have the originals. Okay, I'll ask him.
I have a manual scope, a sort of a manual powered focuser. Now, Malcolm was talking about getting Nina and using it. The only thing is, I think I need a focuser unit that goes to the computer to control the focuser. And then I need a power box as well.
Well, I mean, you only really need Nina. Nina's only if you're trying to do extended astrophotography.
Oh, for a real long time, you need?
Yeah, like if you're setting up to do, like 55-minute exposures and that kind of thing. And then so then it automates everything. It'll slew your telescope to the target.
Oh, Rick.
Does an image, plate solves, re-slews, does autofocus.
Rick, Malcolm.
Yeah.
I can hear you chatting. The reason I pointed him in that direction is so that he could use Nina to autofocus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's all. Not to do any of that other stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, just use that aspect of it. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I've been using it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been using Backyard Nikon to control my camera. But when I want a focusing routine, there isn't one built into Backyard Nikon.
No, there isn't.
So I go over to Nina.
Oh, is it?
But I would say if you're going to try Nina, then you could do all of the things that it does. But I'm just, from my angle, I just used it for focusing.
For focusing. So do you have a controller box that can?
Yeah, the focuser that I have has a motor.
Yeah, I have a motor on my phone.
Okay, when Rick walked away, he took the microphone with him, and I can't hear you anymore.
If you'd like, I can actually probably just crop out your photo from your holding the message. You're right.
But you just need a motorized focuser that has an ASCOM driver, and then you can control it.
Okay, can you hear me now, Malcolm?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
good. And so can
so-
everybody else.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess everyone can, yeah. So I have a hand controller. So I've got 2 buttons on my controller, which makes the focuser go in and out on the motor. So how would I connect the computer to that? Or Nina to that?
Well, you need a focus motor that has a USB port.
Oh, okay, because it has has one of those old style J plug.
Right.
But
So if you've got a focuser that only has a hand paddle and a I don't know if
there's a cable going from the
RJ45
hand controller to the to the control, to the focuser on the mount.
Yeah, if you can connect your motor to the computer, then there is probably an ASCOM driver for it, and you can use a piece of software like Nina to control it.
Okay.
But if you don't, I don't know what to tell you. If you
think
could take
you're-
if you could take a picture of it and send it to me,
Yeah.
I'd be it'd be easier to give a better opinion on it.
Right. I could also probably go to the guy at it's a Moonlight, and he would probably have an adapter that goes from that the old style monitor plug to a USB. And I'm sure
Well,
there's
maybe
a cable for it.
maybe not. Like you could actually just buy a motor, right? Like
Yes, I can. Yeah, because the motor just comes off and you just put another one on.
There's a ZWO focuser motor that is very popular these days. And you just take one set of the knobs off, and you put the motor on in place of one of the knobs, and then there's a little bracket that holds it steady.
Yes.
And it's got the USB ports, and it's powered by USB, so you don't even need extra power for it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then once you've got that, you've got the ability to connect into the computer, and then the computer with Nina will autofocus for you. And there's no better focus than autofocus when it comes to it.
No. Okay, I will query that connection.
I'd be interested to see a photo or two of your focuser.
Yeah,
set.
okay. I'll send you a picture. Tomorrow, maybe I'll go out and take a picture of it, and I'll send it to you. And
Good.
then in the meantime, I'll get a hold of the guy at Moonlight and query if there's some way of hooking.
Yeah, they may make their own motor for their focusers. I don't know.
Probably do.
Yep.
They
But
probably
it doesn't
do.
really matter whether you get. I think at that point it's about personal preference.
Yes.
What you get.
Yeah. I don't think it'd be any problem mounting the motor on. But it's just having the wire connection, like you say.
That's all you need.
Yeah. Okay. That explains a lot. Very good. Okay. Thank you, Malcolm.
Yep.
Talk to you later.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for waiting, everybody. We're just about to restart. There's so much astronomy talk going on.
A bit of sag. And then you walk out and it says, you have to go up.
Let's check the agenda to see what's next. Okay, Rick Wagner is up next with What's Up in the Sky, and then we do once around the room with observing reports from all the members. Then we have to go blink the lights, so everybody's not paying attention. Okay. Let us share.
I figured.
No, we don't want to do that. Let's share the whole display. Make these guys smaller. Okay. There's the other microphone. There it is. You can bring the meeting back to order because there are a bunch of degenerate astronomers. Tim was just gonna reintroduce you.
You find the eclipse?
Sure that, does she have the mic?
She does.
What's happening with the solar eclipse this weekend and then next year? Big one.
Yeah, my monitor.
Okay, folks, we'll get back to business here. You want this or glasses?
I got a couple glasses. Gonna give
Okay, I guess we're coming back to reality here, folks. And up next is Rick Wagner, and he's going to talk to us about what's up in the sky.
Good evening, everybody. So, October. I thought I would start introducing the picture that I have behind my presentation. So this is M34, nice open cluster and nice and bright, lots of bright stars, easy in binoculars. And I started when I'm doing pretty pictures with the Hank scope. If I'm between sort of main targets, then I just pick a. Try again.
Let me go on that for a second. I've got to record too.
Okay. You have to record too. I'm not going to start all over again.
There, now you have a bigger picture.
Oh, okay. So where was I? Yes, M34. So when I'm shooting deep sky objects and stuff, if there's a gap between my main targets, then I just try and pick out an open cluster or two, and I just do 1 hour with the color camera, and actually they're all coming out pretty nice, and they're getting down to like 18th, 19th magnitude. And I find one of the issues I have with the Hank scope is there's a fair amount of scattered light, but actually it tends to show the star colors off very nicely on the brighter stars. So I'm enjoying that. So big events this month. Well, we're going to be cooperating with Queens for the clouded out solar eclipse on Saturday, partial solar eclipse. Normally I would have events in here from the Queen's Physics and Astronomy Department, but they seem to be getting a little lax with their scheduling. So things are only showing up sort of a few days or a week in advance of an event actually happening. So I did go to see Jim Peebles last month talk on cosmology, and he was generous enough to give away 2 autographed copies of his latest book, which I was lucky enough to win. So I'm busy reading that as we go. AAVSO webinars. There's going to be an extra one at the end of this month because the first weekend in November, when they normally have it, is their annual meeting in Boston, including an AstroPi workshop if you're getting into Python and doing astronomical computing. And I think that's actually what the webinar was on last Saturday on the 7th. So you can go back and listen to that. It should be up on their YouTube channel shortly. But anyway, so they've moved the how-to a week earlier on how to DIY your own astronomy equipment. So I think there's going to be like a couple of people talking about building your own stuff. LNA Deep Sky Viewing Area. There's the last 2 events for the year. They stop at the end of October. Astrophotographers Assemble. Well, that was last weekend. There you go. So one more event this coming weekend, Laser Guided Star Tour. And I'm not putting stuff up for the North Frontenac because theirs is only available on Facebook and I don't have Facebook. October hours of darkness, it is starting to get dark. We are now past the equinox. So you can see we're up to over 10 hours of actual astronomical darkness. The sun's getting low, down to like the low 30s by the end of the month altitude. So not very good for astronomical imaging. Events in the sky, starting about now. Gegenschein, you can see before midnight or around midnight. Extremely faint. The fall and the spring are the times to see this because the Milky Way is not involved. The Gegenschein is so faint that the Milky Way completely washes it out. So you have to see it in the spring and the fall when the Milky Way is kind of on the sides. 13th of October, very thin crescent moon, just 31 hours from new in the morning sky. On the 14th of October, not coincidentally, the same day as new moon, a partial solar eclipse. On the 20th of October, 2 moon shadows on the disk of sort of in the evening. Nice easy time to see it. 22nd of October is the peak of the Orionids, and you can see it's right next to the first quarter moon. You think, oh, the moon's going to interfere, but actually the moon sets before Orion rises. So the moon is basically out of the picture for the whole thing. Venus at greatest elongation west in the dawn sky. So at that point, it's starting to turn around and heading back down towards the sun. And then full moon on the 28th. For early November, up to our next meeting, Jupiter is opposition on the 3rd of November. It's getting up like 61 degrees elevation when it transits. Last quarter moon on the 5th, also on the 5th, the South Taurid meteor shower peaks. Very minor shower, like 5 meteors per hour zenithal hourly rate. And on the 5th of November, daylight saving time ends. Hooray, hooray. No, eventually it's going to be here permanently. The 9th of November, this is actually after our next meeting, but close after our next meeting. The moon rises less than half a degree from Venus in the morning sky. It's going to be a spectacular view. It's thinnish crescent, so you'll get nice earth shine, Venus, and Venus is like less than a lunar diameter from the moon. And this is a long ways out, and this is using my stellarium, so I'm not sure this is accurate, but it looks like there's a satellite goes right by, like within a few arc minutes of Venus and the moon. Unfortunately, it's 4.6 magnitude, so that's pretty faint. The major planets, Mars is really now too close to the sun to see. Saturn is well up in the southeast by the end of twilight and transits mid-evening. It's very low in the sky, so you'll want to try and image it or look at it while it's as high as possible. Neptune rises mid-evening, transits just before midnight. Jupiter, as it comes up to opposition, is rising just after dark and transits at about 2 o'clock in the morning. Uranus is something like 8 degrees, I can't remember exactly, 8 or 9 degrees behind Jupiter. And so transits just a little bit later and slightly higher in the sky than Jupiter. So again, a good time to see it. It's 5.6 magnitude, so it's not actually difficult naked eye. We looked at it at Fallen Stars, so it's a good chance to get out and see it naked eye if you haven't done that. Venus at magnitude minus 4.6, no problem seeing that. It's already 25 degrees above the horizon at the start of astronomical twilight. So that's, the sky is still dark and you've got a minus 4.6 object there. And Mercury is on the opposite side of the sun from Mars, but also too close to actually look at. Small bodies, nothing's happening this month, but on the 3rd, we have 21 Lutetia opposition, and on the 5th of November, 18 Melpomene is in opposition. Good chance to image those guys or look at them with a telescope. You can look at things with a telescope. Any questions? Yeah.
So you don't have to repeat the question. Small planets at opposition, they're generally the brightest and the highest, and well, anyway. To positively identify them, you normally take pictures a day before, a day after, that kind of thing. How much, they're not moving very much at opposition. They're moving the least amount of
No,
relative.
no, they
Direction, no?
do the standard retrograde motion. So they're moving eastward in the sky, and then they will become stationary. And that's when they're slowest. And then they start heading back in retrograde motion.
Yeah.
And so at opposition, I think they're, roughly their fastest motion backwards. Then they will become stationary again and then move off again. The retrograde motion is slower than prograde, but it's still moving in a couple of hours with imaging.
Okay, so
I think
overall,
you
it's
can
still
see
a
them in
good
a couple
time
of hours.
to do some
Yes.
split apart time to identify them rather than it's the worst.
And if you're
time.
doing visually, just look at it the next clear night, it's changed fields of view.
Yeah.
So. Anything else?
No.
Thank you.
Well, just a couple of people leaving. I thought you had photos to show
Thank you, Rick. It was great.
during the roundabout. Okay.
Okay. Ooh. Ooh. No, that's not what we want. No, I want to see the people. Ah. Okay, well, okay, next up, we're going to have our observing report. So we'll start online. And the first person I see is Susan G. Yes, you're in person. But you're online. Go ahead, Susan.
And yeah, so the observatory is all back together and the telescope is functioning, and I've been observing everything okay? Okay. And just getting back into the saddle. It's been really wonderful. That's all.
Okay.
I'm just going to turn the lights back on.
So when we pass around the microphone, do you want to talk into it? Because pass it around. Okay, we'll do online first. Okay. John, Hurley.
No, not too much observing lately. Been renovating the office and too much rain, too many clouds the last couple weeks. That warm patch was really nice though. Got some solar in. Not too much else.
How goes the observatory floor? The garage floor?
That should be starting in the next week or so. Maybe 2 weeks. We got plans and permits are done. And money has been exchanging hands with drawings and the township. So we're getting close.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay. Thanks, John. Don, town.
Really not too much from my perspective since fall Fallen Stars, I've had a construction project going on, rebuilding our back deck, so I have not had a lot of time to look at the night sky.
Okay. Thanks. Bruce. Oh, you're muted. Unmute. No, still muted. Okay, Bruce, we'll come back to you in a minute. Tessa, how are you?
Pretty good, thank you. No observing, nothing at all.
Not even out looking at that beautiful lake of yours.
Well, I've been outside, but occasionally look up but not got anything to report.
Oh, well, it's great to see you here. Okay, Mark K.
Nothing to report.
Rosemary.
Well, we had that bright moon and then that virus caught me and now we got clouds. So the only thing I've been observing was some moss when we had the nice warm weather. So a whole lot of nothing astronomy wise.
Oh, okay. Malcolm.
I've been observing minor planets with the remote scope and submitting observations to the Minor Planet Center and hoping to hear back within a couple of weeks that I have been assigned an observatory code so I can begin searching and submitting for new objects. And I'm told that takes a couple of weeks. So right now I've successfully taken all my observations and submitted them. Now I'm just waiting.
Awesome. Okay, Bruce, you're unmuted.
Okay, yeah, I got unmuted now. Yeah, so I've been so a while ago, many years ago, I actually heard a talk from Terence Dickinson, and he showed some pictures which he had taken here in Kingston at the from the Times statue looking out. And so in the last week or so, I actually got interested in going out and having a look and see what I could do. And so I have something I could show you here. Yeah, so just yeah, see if I can get this to okay. Now, are you seeing anything yet?
Just your desktop program.
Oh,
The presentation one.
Very much zoomed up big.
okay.
We're on picture number 2, but it's only a small picture.
Yeah, okay, let's see if I can get it bigger now. There's that bigger?
Yes.
There we go. That's bigger.
Okay. Now, why am I got? Okay, now let's see if I can get this. Now, can you see that? Whoops.
Yeah. Whoop. Well, we did.
Okay, there's something there now. Is that
There
better?
we-
You
Yeah,
got that?
we can see it. We can
Oh,
see
yeah.
it.
No, okay, get this out of the way. Okay, so yeah, so this I took was full on the full moon night last just well, a couple of weeks ago. And so I had to look around the statue and see what was best angle. So I'm still working on it. I think the timing is very important. And you have to sort of get in the right position so you don't see a lot of lights from the town. Now I have another picture Okay, I don't know if I could show it. Okay. Right. So now, can you see this?
Yep.
Okay, we'll go big screen again here. All right. So these are some pictures. It's pictures of a conjunction of Venus and Jupiter, which I took, and because the weather hasn't been so good and so on, I thought, well, I'm still playing around with this, so I looked back